Analyzation of HBCU faculty's pivotal role in diversifying technical communications. So, this is something that is very true to me. As I like to say, I had received my bachelor's in English from an HBCU, Elizabeth City State University in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. My master's in English from Armstrong State University in Savannah, Georgia, where I was first introduced to TPC. I didn't know TPC existed until I got to Savannah. Oh, I forgot, y'all. I got two different computers going up. Bless it. There we go. All right. And my family has also attended HBCUs, so Fayetteville State University, Norfolk State University, and North Carolina A&T University. And I am currently a second-year Ph.D. student in Rhetoric, Writing, and Professional Communications at East Carolina University. So for my presentation, I am hoping to review the Foundation's development and historical work on technical professional communication TPC programs at North Carolina's historically black colleges and universities, better known as HBCUs. North Carolina is home to the majority of historical black colleges and universities. There are 12 there total. It's 13 there total. Of that 13, 12 are accredited by SACS. So that's what binds the 12 together. To also decenter predominantly white institutions, or PWIs, as the focus and knowledge keepers for TPC studies and work. And to focus on the pivotal role HBCU faculty should play in diversifying technical and professional communication studies, as well as review and discuss my own current research. That I developed a survey for North Carolina HBCU faculty members to ascertain the past, current, and future states of TPCU studies at HBCUs. So a brief history of HBCUs for those who may not be, so familiar. Before we came, I was trying to see if there were any HBCUs like on the West Coast. There's only 2. So I was like, okay, this may be a new concept for some people here, so it's all good. So they were officially defined by Congress as institutions whose principal mission was and is the education of black Americans, established before 1964. HBCUs are the oldest minority serving colleges and emerged in the post-antebellum era. In 1890, the Second Morrill Act was enacted in 4 states with dual colleges to support land-grant colleges for blacks and white students, and as a result, 19 HBCUs across the eastern region were established. So what happened was when the act was enacted, then all of a sudden, instead of trying to say, okay, let's go ahead and bring students of color into these institutions, instead, let's go ahead and give them their own institutions. So in a way, for me personally, I've always thought of that as backfiring rather than it being more helpful, rather than doing the good that it was supposed to. So initially, HBCUs were developed to teach African Americans trades and agricultural work. So when you hear institutions like North Carolina A&T, North Carolina Agricultural and Technical University, and as a Georgia governor once stated, I do not believe in the higher education of the darky. He must be taught the trades, and when he is taught the fine arts, he is educated above his caste, and it makes him unhappy. So at one point it was believed that if we were to educate African Americans, people of color, with just trades they can utilize with their hands, i.e. move a little one step up from slavery, then they'll continue to be happy, rather than continuing to gain language, arts, science, STEM, and all of these great things. So in 1898, educators, including white presidents of black institutions, began having annual meetings at Cape Capon Spring, West Virginia, to develop the future of HBCUs. In 1903, a board of educators decided to adopt educational philosophy of Samuel Chapman Armstrong and Booker T. Washington, who was known for, the talented 10th and moving more towards arts and all of these great things, which suggests that it be appropriate to implement industrial education. The HBCU history is so vast, but for the purpose of this presentation, I wanted to really narrow in on the idea of simply focusing on trade type education, not language arts, and that's what we more so see prominently today at HBCUs, where there's a focus on arts education. And in a sense, it kind of leaves HBCUs a little behind within curriculum, but that's something I'll discuss a little more. So after the passing of the Civil Rights Act, legal barriers were removed that prevented African Americans from enrolling in white universities and allowed for integration. So Congress prohibited the establishment of additional black institutions, stating it pushed the idea of segregated institutions, and as a result, HBCUs closed and new ones did not replace them. So during this time, I believe there were about 121 HBCUs that were going. And once they said, hey, y'all can't open your doors anymore, we can't continue to do this, because it continues the idea of separate is equal. So institutions began to shut down, and then there were no more available to continue to open or keep the idea of HBCUs continuing to go. So that's why if you ever visit institutions, most of them you'll see they were established like 1898 and prior to. In the early 1990s, however, HBCUs were responsible for educating nearly 40% of America's black college graduates, 80% of black federal judges, 85% of all black doctors, 75% of all black Ph.D.s, and 50% of black engineers, and 46% of all black business professionals. So with those numbers, we can see that HBCUs continue to play a pivotal role in the education of African Americans. So North Carolina HBCUs and TPC. I like to mention the work of, and if I say her last name incorrectly, please fix it, y'all. Lisa Melanson, thank you so much, y'all. And Sally, they've done fabulous work at looking at the current state of U.S. undergraduate degree programs in technical and professional communications. And what that research does, from my interpretation, really looks at where are we placing this research, where are we placing TPC programs at, department-wise. However, I realize we're not really doing research on where these programs are at institutional-wise. Are they public? Are they private? Where are they regionally? So when we go and look at North Carolina HBCUs and HBCUs in general, there is not a single TPC program at an HBCU. For me, that's a bit of a problem, because if these institutions were developed for engineering and trade, you would see everybody's nodding. Yeah, you would assume that maybe there would be a TPC program at these institutions. So the chart that we have here, I looked at Texas Tech University and what classes do they have available which garnered a Tech Com degree. And I broke down, I looked at some of the language that was used as well that described these courses. And when I went through all of these institutions, the only school that had enough courses that would equate to a degree was North Carolina A&T. North Carolina A&T is also the only HBCU with a concentration in technical communications. They do not offer a bachelor's, anything else of that level for technical communications. So for me, this raised eyebrows. Okay, so we have the availability to be able to develop these courses, however, we still do not have the programs there. So North Carolina and HBCUs continue. So while North Carolina's 12 HBCUs produce the vast majority of African American college graduates in North Carolina alone, unfortunately these schools still do not have TPC programs. So Savage approaches the growing problem from the status of HBCU programs, implying that an increase of technical communication programs at HBCUs should lead to an increase of diversity in the field of technical communications. Now, for myself, I thought, wow, I love it, sounds good. But again, problem being there are no TPC programs at HBCUs. And for me, this feels like you're going to take HBCU graduates and then bring them to the PWI space, censoring the PWI as the space for TPC. So an HBCU approach to diversifying TPC seeks to diversify the TPC field or any academic field by entering the HBCU spaces while emphasizing that knowledge and diversity are already present. So we are already aware that the tools are there. We just have to figure out how do we enact the change. And understand that TPC and other specializations are not often already present because of institutional histories, context, and curricular set standards. As I previously mentioned, a lot of HBCUs, specifically their English programs, are a bit behind. They're still within the classical curriculum, and it leaves students a little bit struggling trying to catch up once they decide to enter into grad school, master programs, where I can definitely speak for myself. I didn't even learn about TPC until my master's program. I didn't know it existed. For myself, I knew Shakespeare though. I can tell you about a black version of Shakespeare. I can do all of that for you, but I was not familiar with TPC as a field. So not only aiming to solely diversify the field by TPC by bringing African Americans and HBCU graduates to PWI TPC programs, which currently serve as a center, but instead creating spaces for TPC at HBCUs themselves. So we're going to diversify from within. And we see this happen at so many other fields, but for TPC, let's try to diversify it from within. So, although HBCUs are struggling in a number of areas, their overall success in providing Black graduates with a better college experience than they would get at a non-HBCU needs to be examined more closely and potentially modeled at other institutions. So the profoundly different experiences that Black graduates of HBCUs and Black graduates of non-HBCUs are having in college leave HBCU graduates feeling better prepared for life after graduation, potentially leading them to live vastly different lives outside of college. So again, we're trying to see, okay, so how do we bring these programs and we do them at HBCUs? But in doing this, we have to acknowledge, and I wanted to make clear that I didn't want it to be an approach of saving HBCUs. We have to acknowledge that this is a complete different culture, complete different things that are going on in these spaces. So acknowledging that current HBCU curricula are shaped by their own history and the oftentimes limited funding they receive. For example, HBCUs are continually working to gain system support. North Carolina public HBCUs look to the UNC system, which is comprised of 16 public senior institutions of North Carolina. My alma mater, Elizabeth City, and one of my other colleagues, Livingstone College, were up to be closed 2 years ago because they weren't producing the numbers that everyone was assuming that they should have. So it was easier to close the two HBCUs or possibly merge them. And even though I'm at East Carolina, it kind of hurt my feelings that they were going to try to merge Elizabeth City and East Carolina together. So we're trying to make sure that we're not necessarily saving these institutions by bringing in TPC or having a savior complex for this. We want to make sure that we're allowing HBCUs to still do the things that they do, but rather we can apply different ways. So faculty's pivotal role in diversifying TPC. So as research continues to call for diversity, and we're looking at TPC studies, there appears to be a lack of research on the role of HBCU faculty. HBCU faculty, and I'm speaking from my personal experience here because again, I haven't seen the research here on it. HBCU faculty and Pt.1 faculty varies very differently. The connection with students is very different, and the way in which faculty may approach students can be very different. So even though researchers have mentioned the importance of including HBCU faculty as a means to enact change, it does not appear to take into account TPC faculty specialization. And whether there are existing TPC faculty and to what level background and expertise is at an HBCU. So we could talk all day, yeah, we're gonna do TPC at HBCUs. Okay, so what about the faculty? So are we going to ask the young lady whose specialty is in classical literature to come in and teach TPC classes? Is that what we're trying to do here? So the absence of HBCU faculty with a TPC background, now this is regardless of race, may directly affect the chances of TPC programs or courses even being developed at HBCUs here. So Gerald Savage, who has researched TPC and HBCUs, emphasizes that a lack of faculty availability can directly alter the availability of course offerings, and he also points out that faculty engagement with students both in and out of the class serve as critical factors as well. So how do we move forward in this? For myself, I wanted to develop a survey that would actually ask instructors, okay, what is your specialization? Are you familiar with TPC? How do we move forward in trying to get a TPC program at HBCUs? So in addition, HBCUs would also need to review available resources before hiring more specialized faculty. Today, there are currently 101 HBCUs in 21 states and territories. They are geographically centrally located in the southern, southeastern region out there in Georgia and everywhere else. Up under that Mason-Dixie line, that's where you can find us. We all down there somewhere. So my survey seeks to inventory and chronicle current North Carolina HBCU faculty members with TPC training and expertise, and to gauge their faith, which I think is very crucial to this conversation, and interest in their home institution to adequately develop TPC programs with their current resources. And the reason why I found it to be so critical, because not many HBCUs are research institutions. Not many HBCUs have the space or the agency to really be able to take the time and to develop these type of research that would need to be done within TPC or have our social justice approach that we have. So faculty survey development, I pulled 4 key questions that I really wanted to show you guys and to kind of chat about that I thought were very important. So the survey consists of 12 questions. We're still waiting IRB approval. Once we have that, then I would love to send you guys my results. I'll make sure I do that. But So we're waiting IRB approval on that.